Good evening, everyone. I will call the Thursday, September 5th meeting 2019 of the Board of Commissioners to order. Sorry we are running late tonight, but we will make up for it in the progress of our meeting. We're very pleased tonight to have Reverend Carol Wilson from Municipal Memorial Methodist Church to lead us in our invocation. We'd all rise and remain standing for the pledge.
Let us pray. Gracious God, we thank you for these faithful servants who give of their time and talents on behalf of our city. We pray for wisdom for their deliberations and decisions. Grant them vision to see the needs and opportunities that allow us to live together as a community of compassion and creativity. May their work reflect a commitment to the greater good for all and the peace that comes from serving a cause beyond ourselves. Help them to listen to each other and to the citizens they serve. And when this meeting is through, may they rest in the confidence of a job well done. Thank you for your presence with us this night. All this I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Peterson, before we get started, I would like to make just one quick comment, and we will address this a little bit later as well. But I just wanted to share with the audience, the City of Johnson City is receiving a wonderful award this afternoon out in Denver, Colorado, for our rebranding. And if y'all notice, Johnson City has a new look about it, and that's gotten national recognition. So two of our staff members, Keisha Shown and JT McSpadden, are out picking up this award for the city, and we will give that additional recognition when they get back. So just wanted to give us some kudos for the work that has been recognized nationally. All right, we'll turn it over to you.
Okay, a couple of matters of housekeeping. On your agenda this evening is a number of special events. We would like to add one to your agenda, and that would be a consideration of a street closure for the Girls on the Run 5K to be held on December the 8th, 2019. If we could get you to add that to the agenda, please.
Okay?
And
Motion for that.
Yeah, we'll need a motion.
I'll move for approval.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Are those in favor? Excuse me, Miss Jennings. Roll call.
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes.
also on your agenda this evening is ordinance number 4705-19 for your consideration on first reading. This is an ordinance dealing with the sign regulations. In conversations with Mr. Mitchell today, we've run across a couple of things that are probably confusing in the packet and that need a little clarification, and I think we can put it in a form that'll be much easier to follow than what you've got in front of you. We would ask you to please defer that to your next meeting.
Okay, is there a motion for deferral?
Move for that, please. Second.
Motion and second. Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes.
The other item of housekeeping in discussions here this evening, there have been a number of questions that are going to require a little further research on staff's part associated with ordinance number 4701-19, which is the Brummett annexation, as well as the resolution that is associated with that annexation. In order to give us enough time to get your questions answered, we would recommend you defer that for 2 weeks.
Okay, motion for deferral?
So moved. Second.
Any other discussion on that? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Okay, and I think that gets us through housekeeping.
Are there, what about the license application? Is it in the
Which one? Oh, yes.
No, it is not in this. Where's Sherry? Sherry. Charlie, is Sherry still out there, please? No? Bob, we've got a beer license application that they were going to add to the agenda tonight. Do you know anything about that? Bu-
Yes.
Yes, I don't know that we've got it up here. I do not have a copy of it, I don't think.
No, it's not on the agenda.
Before we get there, we can add it.
Yeah.
Let's get that before we get there.
Okay,
So we can pull that before we get to
That point in the,
yes,
Agenda.
let them see if they can find it, and we'll get it added as we get to it.
Okay,
Okay.
be good. All right, let's move forward.
so do we need to
when we get there, we can
do
add
that,
it.
or we're gonna, okay.
Yeah, if they
Yes.
get it together, we'll
Get it together.
get a motion for that.
Thanks, I forgot all about it.
Okay. First order of business is consideration of the minutes held on from a special call meeting held on Thursday, August the 8th.
Okay, Commissioners, that was a early morning meeting, I think. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I wasn't there.
You weren't there?
So it's gonna be you.
Oh, I will second that. So I don't think this will pass because they weren't there.
Two of us.
You can still vote on it, even if you weren't there.
I believe the minutes accurately reflect what happened had I been there.
Okay. We have both of them.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Trust me.
And talk about John, that we had had.
Commissioner Calhoun.
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Mayor Brock.
Yes.
Next order of business is consideration of your regularly scheduled meeting minutes held on Thursday, August the 15th.
Move for approval? Second.
Any further discussion? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun.
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Mayor Brock.
Yes.
Next is your minutes from your special called meeting held on Tuesday, August the 20th.
Commissioners? Were you there at this one? I'll second that. Okay. Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun.
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Mayor Brock.
Yes.
Next order of business is presentation of a proclamation for PTA membership.
Well, good evening, and thank you for coming. And it's always a privilege to do this each year, to recognize our Parent-Teacher Association for the Johnson City Schools and all the work that you do to make our schools even a greater place. So we thank you for all the hard work and the money that you raise for the PTA, and a big part of that is through memberships, I'm sure. So I'm very honored to read this proclamation to you tonight. Whereas the objective of the Parent-Teacher Association is to promote the welfare of children and youth in the home, school, community, and the place of worship. And whereas the PTA's goals are to raise the standards of home life, to secure adequate laws for the care and protection of children and youth, and to bring into closer relationship the home and the school. And whereas parents and teachers may work together to ensure quality education and to develop between educators and the general public an awareness of the need for citizen involvement to secure the highest advantages in every area of education for all children. And whereas the association encourages all children, regardless of whether or not they have children, all citizens, Whereas the association encourages all citizens, regardless of whether they have children, to enroll in the PTA so that they will have the opportunity to speak on behalf of children in our community. Now, therefore, I, Jenny L. Brock, Mayor of the City of Johnson City, do hereby proclaim September of 2019 PTA Membership Enrollment Emphasis Month in Johnson City, and I urge citizens to join the Parent-Teacher Association and get involved in meeting the educational, social, and economic needs of each child so they may become citizens with quality education, positive self-esteem, and good morals. So we're pleased to enter this into the record, and if you'll introduce yourself, and I know you have a few things to say.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Rebecca Horvath, and I'm representing the Johnson City Council tonight, and I do have a few things to share. We appreciate you recognizing the hard work our PTAs put into our schools. The Johnson City Council of PTAs is made up of 11 local units in our council, and last year, these 12 PTAs put over $170,000 and tens of thousands of volunteer hours back into our city schools. These are a few of the things that our PTAs have purchased or funded. Sunshades for playgrounds, STEAM materials, iPads and charging stations, short throw projectors, teacher and classroom supplies, music and art supplies, field trips, AR programs, library books, cultural arts programs, senior scholarships, teacher grants and scholarships, digital learning day supplies, STEM lab, and monthly staff and teacher luncheons. Some of the service projects we've spearheaded are Second Harvest food drives, Thanksgiving baskets, clothes closets, Green and Clean, Literacy Weeks, Christmas gifts for needy families, book fair money for students who can't afford their own books, Bridge Program, Teddy's Fund Donation Drive at Indian Trail, care packages to nursing homes and the VA, winter clothing drives, and food drives for children who have fallen through the cracks a little bit. Special events that we've sponsored include Grandparent Day luncheons, Stop, Drop, and Read, fall festivals, auctions, walkathons, STEM days, spirit days, Halloween parades, honors days, field days, middle school dances, ETSU and barter theater performances, senior teas at our elementary schools, fourth grade promotion celebrations, homecoming events, various family engagement nights, incentive programs, and technology nights for parents. And then a little bit about our awards that we've received, because I think we earned them after all that. We received a technology grant. We had 100% teacher participation at 4 of our schools. We had 10% membership increases at 3 schools. We had 1 school with 300 hours of literacy and 300 hours of power, which is a male engagement program. We had several state awards for cultural arts, and at the state level, Science Hill won awards for excellence in advocacy, diversity and inclusion, volunteering, and we were named the outstanding high school unit in the state. Liberty Bell won awards for excellence in volunteering, and Town Acres won the award for diversity and inclusion. Parents, grandparents, and community members donated tens of thousands of hours citywide to make all of these things happen. And we appreciate our commissioners and mayor recognizing this. And if you have filled out your donation form and would like to give me a check, I'll be glad to take that. Thank you.
Well, I'm exhausted from that list of things that you do. And we all know that our school system could not operate without the Parent-Teacher Association. It's a long-term. I know we all sitting here can remember when we were in elementary school, we had the PTA who looked out after us. So thank you again, Rebecca, for all you're doing and for all the committee of the PTA. And I'm sure we will get our forms into you. Here's the proclamation. Thank you.
I do have a point of information. A certain third grader was promised a party if everyone in her class parents joined the PTA. Will this count for that third grader's party, or how would I make sure that it was properly noted? I mean, I'm just asking theoretically. Okay.
Not for himself, of course, but.
Okay. Okay.
Memberships to her class to
make sure they
meet their goals.
All right. I just needed to know. I mean, to tell a friend. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We want to recognize also in the audience tonight, Ms. Treese, who's from the school board. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Your next item is a proclamation recognizing National Payroll Week.
National Payroll Week. Do we have our person here we want to recognize? Well, if anybody wants to get a paycheck, maybe they'll come up and I'll just present this to you. We were hoping they were bringing paychecks. So we will make sure that they get this proclamation written out. I just won't go ahead and read it tonight. So.
Yes, ma'am. At this time, if we could ask Mr. Witherspoon and Mr. Quarter and his other employees to come forward, please.
Mayor, if you don't mind, I'm going to stay at the podium.
Sure.
We're pleased to, Mayor, Mr. Peterson, and the rest of the Board of Commissioners, we're pleased to present 5 wastewater treatment plant awards based on extremely high level of operation compliance at the 3 city-owned and operated treatment plants. I'd like to introduce the staff tonight. Jeff Quarters, over on the left, he's the Superintendent of Operation and Facility Maintenance. Aaron Mullins is the Chief Operator over wastewater treatment facilities. Albert Greenwell is the operator in charge for our Knob Creek plant. Darrell Thompson is the operator in charge for Brush Creek plant. And Nick Street is the operator in charge for the regional wastewater plant. All of these individuals have the highest level of state certification for operating treatment plants. So they need to be recognized for that, and a number of their employees do too. But the awards that we've got tonight from the Kentucky-Tennessee Water Environment Association for the Knob Creek and the regional plants were recognized for regulatory compliance. So Mr. Quarter and Mr. Mullins have those awards. From the National Association of Clean Water Agencies, NACWA, the Brush Creek plant was recognized with their silver award. Mr. Thompson has that award. The Knob Creek plant was recognized with their 5 Platinum Award, which recognizes 5 consecutive years of 100% permit compliance. Mr. Greenwell has that award. And the regional plant was recognized for 9 consecutive years of 100% permit compliance, and Mr. Street has that award. These facilities are staffed and operated 24 hours a day, 365 per year. The operating personnel will be the first to tell you that folks inside the plant do a great job of operating the plant, but they're not the only ones that are contributors to that success. The construction folks, the maintenance folks, the administration, as far as the customer service, and the engineering group all contribute to their successes. The other thing that is critical, and we generally have a very good understanding of what others are doing, they fully realize that they work and live in a community with leaders who make water quality and protection of the environment a priority. And that is true of this commission, and it has been true of previous commissions, that infrastructure is important and worth investing in. We just had the JC 101 class this Tuesday of this week. That is the most diverse JC 101 class I believe I've ever been involved in. They could not say enough positive things about touring. They toured our water plant, they toured our wastewater plant, the regional plant. And they had a number of positive things to say about the facilities and the employees. We've got one other award that I need to mention that was received, and this goes, he's not here, but J.T. McSpadden with our marketing department. When we submit for the NACWA award, you know, the typical utility director, plant person wants to send in an aerial view of their plant that shows all the basins. And they don't really want that. They want something that's jazzed up just a little bit. And so every year that we've submitted, and again, this year we submitted a unique submission. Last year, our submission won among a number of other larger groups. This year, they set the theme to the award ceremony to Dustin Timberlake's song, Can't Stop the Feeling. Now, Ms. Jennings, do you know that song?
Sure do.
You don't want to bust out in a song, do you?
I won't do something.
Okay, all right, very good.
Justin Timberlake.
So this year,
Justin Timberlake.
Justin Timberlake.
okay, that's right, thank you, see?
Even I know.
Yeah. But anyway, the good news is our submission won again this year. And the employees have not seen this. So we had a very special guest that made an appearance for our submission, and JT made our employees rock stars at the award ceremony. Oh, that's not the wrong one. Let's see.
He made you a PowerPoint.
So you'll see some of those folks look very familiar there. That's Mr. Greenwell. That's Aaron in the background, and you can see this gentleman right here. And so that went over very well at the award ceremony, and our submission won another award. So they'll be available after the meeting for autographs if you so choose. So, but they've done a good job, and again, they will be the first to say thank you for investing in our facilities. Mayor.
Well, Mr. Witherspoon, we are very fortunate in Johnson City and in the regional system as well to have the quality of water that we have. And that's only because of the quality of employees that we have that make it so. It just doesn't happen on its own. So, gentlemen, we want to thank you on behalf of the commission for your dedication to your jobs and what you do for this community. And shall we give them a toast? We've all got water right here.
Straight
So on the count of 3, cheers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. All right, boys.
Y'all can stay if you want, but we're going to put you to work. Thank you very much.
All right, Commission, your next order of business is consider a temporary occasion license for the Johnson City, Jonesboro, Washington County Chamber Foundation to serve beer at the Geico Motorcycle Built to Ride Tour event, which will be happening tomorrow and Saturday. The appropriate reviews have been made, finding no disqualifying factors, and the recommendation is for your approval.
Varoom. Varoom is right. So let's get our part done with, and you can.
Second.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, Ms. Jennings.
Commissioner Calhoun.
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Mayor Brock.
Yes. So, Ms. Whitson, Ms. Moore, y'all want to tell us about the Geico Motorcycle Rally?
Yeah, this is a rally that brings in, it's free and open to the public for any motorcycle enthusiast, or if you just want to learn about them. They have a custom bike build-off that takes place downtown. They'll be on Main and Market Street. They're going to have a stunt show, vendors, competitions, live music. And we had it in 2017, and had great response from all our local restaurants and shops. And so we're hoping to have just as many people. And we had about 12,000 spectators over the course of the 2 days in 17, and we hope for just as many this time.
And how many motorcycles will be in town?
Well, registered riders on the event, or for the event, we're hoping to have about 1,000 to 1,500. But then anyone else, even if you're not registered, can still ride down there and be a part of the event.
Yeah.
You just don't go on the official ride with them.
So a couple thousand maybe?
Yes.
Bikes in town?
Yes.
Okay.
And then 2 weeks later, you're getting ready to hear that big report.
I understand that. Well, good. So we'll invite all our citizens to come down and look at these amazing bikes that are going to be here with us.
Very unique and expensive bikes.
Okay, very good. Very good. Thank you.
Appreciate
Okay.
it.
Thanks.
Your next order of business is to consider a temporary occasion license for the Combat Veterans Motorcycle Association, Chapter 18-3, to serve beer at the Hills and Hollers Hog Rally event to be held on September 18th and 19th and 20 and 21st. The appropriate reviews have been made, finding no disqualifying factors, and we would recommend approval of both applications.
Commissioners?
Approval. Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun.
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Mayor Brock.
Yes, and I have failed, and Ms. Whitson, when y'all come back up the next time, I will ask you, have you read the rules and regulations on selling alcohol in our community?
Yes, ma'am, we
And
have.
do you agree to abide by those?
Yes, ma'am.
Very good, thank you.
And furthermore, 3 of our actual board members are now certified with server permits.
Very good, okay.
Stacy, myself, and Brad. So we are taking the correct steps for
Very
that.
good, we appreciate that. So you want to tell
Thank
us
you.
about the event?
Well, the event's the National Harley Owners Group Hog Rally. And it being a national event should, rough estimates is a minimum of 5,000 bikes for this time period.
That'll be a bunch of it.
Yeah, it's an extremely large event, but we're blessed with all the beautiful riding in this area, which
Yeah.
is going to attract a lot of people.
Very good.
And with the CVMA, with our part of it, we are a local chapter of combat veterans that ride motorcycles, raise money to help veterans in need, help place them in homes
other things that they may need. And this is a great chance for us to make some money for our cause.
Well, thank you for what you do. We appreciate that so much. Now, this will be an all Harley event, is that correct?
It is sponsored by Harley.
They'll have some
and,
sandbaggers coming in, you think?
There may be some. We won't discriminate.
But by and large, it's Harley, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So there'll be a special sound in town, that's
There will be a lot of rumble, correct.
very good. Well, thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, council.
Thank you.
Your next item is a temporary occasion license for the Downtown Johnson City Foundation to serve beer at the Grown and Gathered event to be held on October the 10th. The appropriate reviews having been made, finding no disqualifying factors, the recommendation is for your approval.
Good, and I will ask them this time. I'm going to ask them twice. Ms. Cantler could not be here. She texted me from Asheville, and so Ms. Moore is on the board with the Grown and Gathered, and will stand in for her on that. So, Ms. Moore, have y'all read the rules and regulations on the sale of alcohol in Johnson City?
Yes, we have.
And do you agree to abide by those?
We do.
Both times.
Both times.
And that will account for the other one, too? Okay, very good.
Move
Commissioners?
for approval.
Second.
All right, any other questions? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun.
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Mayor Brock.
Yes, okay. And so why don't you tell about the Grown and Gathered?
So it's still preliminary, getting things planned, but I know for the event, we are going to have Main Street Pizza, their River Creek Farm Catering. They'll be doing the food again this year. It'll be at the Pavilion. We're still going back and forth if we're going to do 2 seatings or just 1 to see if we can accommodate more people. But we're thinking about kind of lowering the price point a little bit to get more people out there and involved in it. And for the beer permit part of it, we're going to be having local beers and hopefully to have like the Go All Out IPA from JRH. And then I know Johnson City Brewing did a sesquicentennial beer, so try to tie in all those things.
How many attended last year?
You know,
125 or so.
125, 150.
Like that, yeah.
It was a great
And
night.
I think if we could do 2 seatings, we'd try to do about 100 per seating, just so it's not so tight. But and we're also
Special
doing a
event.
night farmers market with it.
Oh.
Jennifer would like
very
that.
nice. Very good. All right. Thank y'all very much.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Next is consideration of a certificate of compliance for Shane and James Abraham doing business as Universal Wine and Spirits located at 230 Marketplace Boulevard, Suite 110. The appropriate reviews having been made, finding no disqualifying factors, the recommendation is for your approval. And I would remind you, this is not the issuance of a liquor license. This is merely a review stating that these operators are qualified to operate a business and they are not in violation of any local laws or ordinances.
Move approval.
Second.
Any other questions, comments? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun.
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Mayor Brock.
Yes.
Next item is consideration of a certificate of compliance for retail package store for Shane and James Abraham doing business as Universal Wine and Spirits Beverage Warehouse located at 2815 West Market Street, Suite 10. The appropriate reviews having been made, finding no disqualifying factors, the recommendation is for your approval. And again, this is for a certificate of compliance.
Move approval.
Second.
And on a certificate of compliance, the applicant does not have to be present.
That is correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun.
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Mayor Brock.
Yes.
Your next order is consideration of a beer license application for American Multi-Cinema Incorporated, located at 1805 North Rome Street. This is consideration of a Class 1 on-premise beer license. The appropriate reviews have been made, finding no disqualifying factors, and the recommendation is for your approval.
Welcome.
Thank
Would you
you.
state your name and address, please?
My name is Scott Stipsitz. I work for AMC Theaters. I'm the director of food and beverage. I live in Olathe, Kansas at 16389 South Blake Street.
Good, and we would invite you to move to Johnson City,
Well,
Tennessee.
after driving around today.
Yeah, how about that? We have a room with a view.
I certainly wouldn't mind it.
Good. All right, commissioners. Oh, let me ask you the question
Yes,
first.
ma'am.
Have you read the rules and regulations about the sale of alcohol in Johnson City?
I have.
And do you agree to abide by those?
Yes, I do.
Very good. Commissioners?
Second.
All right, any other comments or questions? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun.
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Mayor Brock.
Yes. And why don't you tell us about the changes that have occurred at the theater?
Well, I was finally able to walk through the theater today, and I was shocked with the remodel. Hopefully, everyone's had an opportunity to go out there, and if not, gets to go out there soon. It is gorgeous. The auditorium environment, recliners. I mean, it's like watching a movie in your living room, only with a much bigger screen.
And the food and beverage offerings now have been expanded, is that
Expanded
correct?
significantly, yes, ma'am.
So-
In fact, we just rolled out a new menu that takes it even further than what you may have seen previously. Much more in the way of meal replacement, so mini tacos, macaroni and cheese bites, significant upgrade in the number of options.
So the theater's going to smell more,
Delicious.
not just popcorn alone?
No, not just popcorn alone.
Okay, I'm going to miss that.
Well, you'll still smell the popcorn. That popper, you can't hide that smell.
Well, very good. I haven't been out yet, but we'll have to do that. Have anybody been to the movie yet?
Not since they finished.
Okay, we'll get out there.
All right. we
Thank you so
appreciate
much,
it.
and welcome to Johnson City.
Thank you
Always
very
welcome to
much.
come back.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
At this time, we'd like for you to consider a street closure request from Girls on the Run to accommodate their 5K.
Don't we have one more? We were just handed another application for a license.
Yes, sir, we can. I need you to, I was just going to take care of the ones you'd added to the agenda, but if you'd like to add that one to the agenda now. we
Yeah,
can
this
do
would
that.
be where that would have
Sure.
happened.
We'd like for you to add to the agenda for this evening a beer license application for just one more of Johnson City for your consideration.
Is there a second? Give us just 1 second right here. Thank you. If you come forward and state your name and address.
Jacob Grieve, 218 West Olson Street.
Okay. Mr.
We
Grieve?
need to finish voting to add it to the agenda.
Oh, thank you very much. So there was a motion and a second to add to the agenda. Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun.
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Mayor Brock.
Yes. And give us just 1 second. It just got in front of us, if you would.
This is the same that was emailed the other day, is it not? Where's Alex?
That I don't know.
Yeah,
I
I
did
think
not see the email.
All right. Yeah.
All right, we have an application that's been processed and a recommendation from staff for approval. Okay. And Mr. Grieve, you've read the rules and regulations on selling alcohol in the city of Johnson City, and you agree to abide by those. Very good. Commissioners?
Move for approval? Second.
Motion and a second. Any other comments? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun.
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Mayor Brock.
Yes. You want to give any info about,
Yeah, we're going to be a small craft beer bottle shop, so we're going to specialize in sours and barrel-aged beers, and that's about it.
and you're located where?
It's going to be at 220 West Market Street.
So where is that?
It is on the corner of West Market and Montgomery, adjacent to Skillville.
Okay.
Or the Johnson City Press.
Yeah, across the street from Johnson City Press, correct.
Okay. In that corner building right there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, it used to be a
It used to be a...
over mountain?
No, we're down the street. This used to be Whitaker's Roofing.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank
All
you for
right.
your patience and
Thank you.
waiting. Uh-huh.
Okay, next event will be consider the street closure for Girls on the Run to be held Sunday, December the 8th.
Turn appointments next?
Do you, okay, I mean, I'm just trying to
They're
clean
already-
up what
they're
you
already-
added to the agenda.
They've already stood up. Maybe we
Okay, well, no, I'm just going,
Up till now, we've been following the agenda.
We're following the
No.
agenda.
But we added these on, so he was getting those out of the way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm just getting rid of the ones that were added on. So,
And they could have been done earlier.
Okay, y'all come on up.
We can get them out.
You can tell we're really confused tonight.
We're on again.
Well, you're not
Big
getting-
hit.
Hear from us twice.
Yeah. Okay, good. We'll take care of our business, and then we'll introduce you and let you talk about it. Okay. So
The
go ahead.
route is in your packet. It's the typical route pretty much of King Commons to Thomas Stadium, and the recommendation would be for your approval.
Okay. Commissioners, is there a motion?
Approve.
Is there-
Second.
All right. Any other comment? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes. Okay, now, if you'd introduce yourself and talk about the event, that'd be great.
I'm Becky Dunkelberger, and I'm the Council Director for Girls on the Run Northeast Tennessee. And this is Angie Huffine, the Assistant Council Director for Girls on the Run Northeast Tennessee. And we appreciate you all having us tonight. This is actually a new 5K course. We've had to make some accommodations because of the regulations from the VA. So we're excited to be running through downtown Johnson City. We're going to run through Founders Park as well. So it'll be fun and exciting for the girls. Our program is a character development program for girls in 3rd through 8th grades, and we inspire girls to be joyful, healthy, and confident, and to activate and know their limitless potential. We host 2 seasons, a fall season and a spring season, and we are run by volunteer coaches that are we train. The girls learn about themselves and unique traits. They learn how those traits work with a team, and they also develop their own community impact projects and learn to empower themselves through giving back to the community. All the while, we creatively incorporate into our curriculum training for a 5K, to complete a 5K. I say that because not all the girls are going to run it. You're going to see dancers, you're going to see skippers and hoppers and walkers and jumpers, and the 5K brings together the whole region of girls because we'll be serving around 600 girls in the fall and 600 in the spring. So they come from Bristol, Virginia, and Hancock County, Tennessee. They bus down to Johnson City to do this 5K, and it culminates their season and the celebration of what they've accomplished throughout the 10 weeks. So we're excited to host it again, and
And they
looking
run
forward
with
to
their
it.
families.
They can run with their families. It's a public event, and it's actually our biggest fundraiser. So we welcome you to come and join in on this celebration, and come cheer the girls on and support them as well.
The program is wonderful. My granddaughter's in it, and I did the one last fall, probably the last one that went through the VA, I guess.
Yeah.
But y'all do a great job.
Well, thank
She
you.
can't wait to be in it again. So.
Yay. Girls on the Run is so much fun.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next order of business is to make 5 appointments to the Public Art Committee.
All right, Commissioners, let's get this pulled up here. This is an amazing committee, number one. The qualifications of the people who have applied this time and who serve on it, and the difference that the art committee has made in Johnson City is so noticeable, and it's just beautiful downtown because of it. It's added a softening element, I think, to our city. So we have 3 reappointments that are listed here, and then 4 new appointments, which would take the committee up to 15 members.
I will move to go by their recommendation for the 3 reappointments and the 4 appointments.
All right, there's a motion, is there a second?
Second that, yes.
All right, any other comments?
Should we read the names so people know what we're doing?
That's a good idea. The reappointments are Sherry Earnhardt, Vanessa Mayoras, Sarah Nobles, and the new appointments are Stacy Williams, Michael Anthony Fowler, Sarah Carrier, and Dave McClellan. Okay. Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes.
I do have to say that I'm not sure that Mr. Fowler and I are related, so I was voting. He's not closely related anyway, but anyway.
Just in case.
This is
Just
one
in
of
case,
those,
just-
this is also one of those where we have so many good applicants in
Absolutely.
excess of the spots to fill. And so for those that didn't get appointed, understand that should not prevent you from applying in the future, because the need will be there again. And we just, as a community, should be grateful for the degree of participation and interest that exists that sometimes leaves us in these positions. which I guess are good problems to have.
Right.
So thank you to all.
And also, Commissioners, as we have been working diligently to get more diversity on all of our boards and commissions, I think we have a good balance on this one and a lot of different experiences that come into the Art Committee. Mr. Dave McClellan, if you read his resume, Mr. Peterson, we know Dave from the city, and he's quite a talented person in many, many other ways. So he will add a lot of expertise, I think, to the
Yes, ma'am.
to the committee. Okay.
From a selfish perspective,
Mm-hmm.
I really like him doing what he's doing now. He does us a really good job. This will be a sideline for him.
That's right. We know that. Okay. Next.
Your next order of business is to make 4 appointments to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board.
And Commissioners, I did want to make some opening comments because, as I mentioned just a minute ago, as we're trying to get more diversity on our boards, not just from a standpoint of representing the community in terms of, the demographics of our community, but also what they bring to it. Parks and Rec is not only just athletic representation, but it's also our park system, it's our nature parks that we have. And so I am going to make a recommendation that, we are weighted very heavily on the athletic side. We're going to be undertaking a project in the fall to look at Buffalo Mountain, our nature park at Buffalo Mountain, on how we can improve the usage over there. And I think I'm personally going to support an applicant that has that kind of background, that knows that park system very, very well. So I'm going to recommend that, let me pull this up here. We have 4 appointments to make. And I'm going to go ahead and make a recommendation for Ms. Carrie Fleener as a reappointment, Mr. Mark Upton. Carrie represents kind of the soccer area, Mr. Upton, the bicycling. I'm going to also recommend Mr. James Deerstone, who is a naturalist, and then Mr. Joe Bradley, who brings in a viewpoint from football, baseball, basketball, and represents the minority community. So those are going to be my 4 recommendations. And I'll put that in the form of a motion.
I would second that.
Okay. Is there any other comment? We'll take a vote on that. If we want to do anything different, we can do it, depending on how this vote goes. Okay, Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun,
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise,
Yes.
Mayor Brock.
Yes. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
All right, your next order of business is to consider a street closure request to accommodate the Bluegrass Half Marathon to be held on Sunday, September the 29th. The appropriate reviews have been made, and we would recommend your approval with the route included in your packet.
We'll do our business and then let you speak of it. There's a motion. Is there a second? Motion and a second. Any other questions? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun,
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise,
Yes.
Mayor Brock.
Yes. Now, Ms. Hubbs, the Goose Chase.
Well, I
You
felt
wanna
like
talk-
Brenda Whitson should come up here with me because 10 years ago we started this little race, and it's become one of the premier half marathons of the Tri-Cities. We have the fastest times, which if you're a runner, it's a good thing, and it's the flattest course, I've been told, in the B Series. So we have, it's one of the larger half marathons of our area, and we showcase ETSU Bluegrass throughout the course and at the finish. And the neat thing about this year is we're actually playing off something that Keisha's been working on with the John C. Sessions. And so Rich Artone Records, as many of you all probably have heard, was, of course, recorded here. And so our logo for this year is actually a playoff of that album. And we videoed Mr. Olson and it should be released next week. And he talks about the recording, and the recording actually took place around Founders Park in the pavilion, and that's where our finish line is. So it all just comes together. And so we hope the 10th year is our biggest and best, but we're excited.
Very good.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much for all you do. You bring a lot of events into Johnson City, and we're very pleased with that. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Next is a request for a street closure to accommodate the annual Hilltopper Invitational Marching Competition. This event will be held on October the 19th between 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. We would recommend your approval.
All right, the Hilltopper Invitational Marching Band Competition. Let's go ahead and get our business. All right.
Second.
You hear the questions? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes. Ms. Treese, you want to go ahead and tell us about it?
Yep, it's our 9th annual Hilltopper Invitational Marching Band Competition. What we're most excited about is we offer, for some of our smaller marching bands in the entire Upper East Tennessee and Southern Virginia, opportunities to not travel far but still have a great marching band competition to go to. We bring in judges from North Carolina, so none of the judges have actually seen any of the bands that are there. Last year we had about 1,500 marching band students who performed on the field during the day, so it's really a great competition.
Expecting the same turnout?
We're hoping for the same this year, and we're hoping for good weather. It rained the last 2 years, so we're hoping it's sunny this year.
So this is different from the thing that's going to be at the Mini Dome.
Yes, at ETSU.
Okay.
ETSU's is a Bands of America competition, and actually Science Hill is competing in that. When at our own competition, we don't compete, but we showcase our show for the year at the end of the competition, so everybody can see our show too.
Well, I think having two significant events, in the music area like this is just good for the city.
It's awesome.
We do
It's
a lot of
awesome.
athletic events, so this kind of balances us a little bit.
Yes,
So,
yes.
good. Thank you so
And our
much.
kids are working hard for it too.
Okay, no rain.
No rain, yes, thank you.
Next order of business is a consideration of a street closure to accommodate the Tell It To Me 90th Anniversary JC Sessions to be held on Sunday, October the 20th, and the appropriate review.
19th.
19th, I'm
Saturday.
sorry, Saturday the 19th until midnight on Sunday, October the 20th. We would recommend your approval.
Well, let's get this over with. You want to make a motion?
Move for approval?
All right. Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes. Ms. Whitson, again?
Yes.
You're busy.
Yes, we are busy. It's a great time for motorcycles and music and bands and everything throughout the city in the next probably 60 days. But as hopefully our community is aware, Johnson City is celebrating its 150th birthday, the sesquicentennial. And as part of that, the 90th anniversary of the Johnson City Sessions is going on this year as well. So on this day, we will pay tribute to, and that's actually close to the time when the sessions were recorded in 1929. So Tell It To Me, the Johnson City Sessions Revisited, will be a festival or one-day event that will start at 11 o'clock that morning and end that evening that will focus on the music and the importance of not only our cultural heritage and our arts, but what this music has meant to the world of folk and country music in the world today. So there will be music, there will be booths set up with vendors that will be focused on music. We're also partnering with the Boones Creek Historical Association that will take care of a kids area, and Vicki Shell is going to do a great job in teaching kids how to use gourds to both make musical instruments and ornaments and things like that, and be square dancing. But it'll be a great day, a fun family day to bring people downtown to pay tribute to our music and the importance that it had on the music world.
Would you, for people who may not understand what the Johnson City Sessions was, explain that?
The Johnson City Sessions took place a year after the Bristol Sessions. So you have, the Blind Lemon that was part of that group, and a lot of musicians that really had great influence on, the music of today. And so it's important that, we not forget that. And so the box set that the Bear family out of the UK, we will have those available, and I actually have a copy for each one of you, but it's not being officially distributed until after the press conference next week to announce the event. But that music is very important, and Tell It To Me was one of the songs that was recorded, and it was probably one of the most popular songs. But
So this was when a recording group came into town?
came into town,
And
yes.
then the local people came and
And
recorded their
the whole,
music?
the whole process was like, can you sing folk music? Can you sing, old-time music? And that's how they did a call to action, if you will, to get people to come and to record. And the actual historic marker is located on the site of News Channel 11. So that's actually where we think that the recording actually took place. So Bristol, was the birthplace, and then we came along, the year after and had our sessions.
I made a museum around theirs.
Absolutely. That's not to say that something can't happen from ours as well. And maybe this can be the stepping stone to make something happen, particularly with ETSU and the Bluegrass program that they have, because they're highly involved in this and are using a lot of their resources to help us to bring in some great musical acts.
Well, we look forward to that. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Next item is consideration of a street closure to accommodate the Niswonger Children's Hospital Scarecrow Skedaddle Shindig Festival to be held on Sunday, October the 27th. This has been reviewed, and the recommendation is for your approval.
Okay. Commissioners?
Approved. Second.
All right. Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun.
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Mayor Brock.
Yes. Okay.
Well, I'm here actually for the 5K, but I can represent both. But
Can you state your name again?
yes, yes. But it's going to be a great little event for the community. Niswonger Children's Hospital is, all their nurses and doctors are all behind this, and it's a great time for kids to come out and dress up. And the highlight of the whole event, including the race, is the modified race. And so children that need assistance with walkers, coaches, wheelchairs, just any device, we do like a little 200-meter race. And it's not even a race, it's just a time just to cheer them on. And it's hard to hold back some joyful tears watching those kids, and it's a great event.
Okay, so we have a companion to that.
Your next
we have a
item
5K.
is consideration of
Yeah.
a street closure
Yes.
to accommodate the 5K that is in association with the event that you just approved. It also will be held on Sunday, October the 27th. We would recommend your approval.
Motion and a second. Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun.
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Mayor Brock.
Yes. So this is just a longer version now for
Yes,
the
yes.
adults.
They will have booths at the shindig and trick-or-treating kind of thing, so it's just one big event.
Okay, good. Thank you. Next.
Next on your agenda is consideration of a street closure to accommodate the annual trick or treat on Walnut Street. We would recommend your approval.
Commissioners?
Move for approval.
Second.
Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun.
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Mayor Brock.
Yes, you should have been paid by the event tonight. You could have gone home
Absolutely.
wealthy, yeah.
Do you want me to?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Trick or Treat on Walnut Street is just a great event that Tom Seaton at the Firehouse and the bank started many, many years ago. The chamber has kind of taken that on and helped to spearhead those efforts as well. So it's a great way for businesses to get involved, to come and to Walnut Street and give out candy and water. A lot of churches do it. I know our church does that and have done it for the last several years. But it's a great place for parents to bring their children, and it's very safe, and to kind of start the night off of Halloween in a great environment, and to get people downtown.
Any questions? Is that
All right.
the last one?
That's my last one. I'm going home now, if that's okay.
Not that we didn't like seeing you.
Thank you.
Good night.
The next item is consider a street closure request from the Goose Chase to accommodate the s'mores run to be held on Saturday, November the 2nd. This is actually a request to close Alabama Street. The balance of the race actually takes place on the Tweetsie Trail, so it's just that one block of Alabama Street that you're closing. We'd recommend your approval.
Kind of help stack the people so that you can let them go in waves, is that correct?
It is, it started out a very small race and has just grown throughout the years. And I think the highlight is just the marshmallows, chocolate, and graham crackers. Everybody wants to come out for that, not really the race. And it's, of course, it's all downhill. It's on the Tweetsie Trail. We start it on our end, and we go to Elizabethton to the Smokehouse Barbecue Restaurant, and that's where we have our s'mores extravaganza. And just the numbers have gotten out of control for us. Not really out of control, but just it's grown. And so we need to come up with a solution just how to stage different people. And so closing Alabama is going to help us with that.
Move for approval.
Any other discussion? How many are going to go get s'mores?
That's right.
Okay. Ms. Jennings?
Calhoun.
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Mayor Brock.
Yes. Well, I think this just goes to show how people really want to get together and be active and be outdoors, and it's a real family event as well, so
And eat
it's good.
s'mores.
And eat s'mores.
Amen.
That's right.
Your next item for consideration is a street closure request to accommodate the turkey trot that is happening on Thursday, November the 28th, which will be Thanksgiving morning. And the event is an annual event. There's not going to be any beer associated with the turkey trot, and we would recommend your approval for the street closure.
Move to approve. Second.
Just to clarify, there hasn't been beer involved with any of these prior, like the.
Not the turkey trot, but several of these other street closures have involved some alcohol.
Yeah.
But like the trick or treat on Walnut, the Children's Hospital, just most of what we read
Girls on
through,
the
I would
Run.
say, I hope
Girls on
there's
the
not
Run,
beer
you know.
involved. So,
Well, Karen, thank you for bringing it this far ahead of time, so we'll be ready to go here soon. This is the 14th year.
It is.
Yeah.
We've grown the past 2 years. We're well over 4,200 people, and it is the place to be Thanksgiving Day. And who knows? People might like us and might have voted for us for some things and that was out, but we can't talk about that. But yeah, we're very thankful and just grateful to be involved.
will there be a skydiver again this year?
You never know. You never know what we have up our
Okay.
sleeve. We always try to make it bigger and better.
I think he's
And we're-
looking for a volunteer assignment.
No, I'm not. I thought that was just really cool.
I thought I might be the skydiver
Yeah,
this year.
yeah.
How about that?
Go all out, that's all I can say.
Ms. Jennings, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Calhoun.
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Mayor Brock.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
And I guess we will have the parting of the turkey in early November then.
Yes.
Okay.
Very good.
Thank you all.
All right.
Your next order of business is a street closure request to accommodate the Girls on the Run 5K. This will be their spring event to be held on Saturday, May the 2nd. We would recommend your approval.
I think they get the award for the earliest.
Earliest, that is right.
Way ahead of time. so.
Move approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun.
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler.
Yes.
Commissioner Vice Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Mayor Brock.
Yes. Okay.
Well,
So,
we're Becky
repeat of what you
Dunkelberger.
had before, but in the spring, right?
Yes, it is, and it's a lot of fun, a little warmer. We won't have hot chocolate at this one, we'll just have water. Lots of fun color themes that go along with it. Again, it's one of our biggest fundraisers, and all the money, so invite your family, your friends, the community. All the money goes to support scholarships for the program for the girls participating. We're excited, May 2nd at 9 a.m. at Southside Elementary is the starting point, so it runs through the tree streets.
Well, we appreciate what you as the volunteers do for these young girls, not only coaching, but mentors. And as you said, character development is a part of this program, which is great. So thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Your next order of business is consideration of the consent agenda.
Okay, Commissioners, is there anything you would like to pull?
I'd like to pull D2, please.
B2. Vice Mayor?
No, ma'am.
A3 for me, please.
A3. Okay, and I don't have anything, so, all right, Commissioner Calhoun? would you like to-
Just a question, I guess, Mr. Peterson, in looking at the proposals, the Rutherford Moss and Company was the lowest bid on that, but they did not rank the highest in the evaluation. I think BCS was highest in the evaluation. Was there a rationale for that, the difference? Do you know?
That's a school question. I do not have an answer for your question, Commissioner. Janet, do you have any insight other than Rutherford and Moss has done their audit for a while, haven't they? Long time.
I'm not against them doing it. I just
Sorry.
wondered what the rationale was, and if they've done it for a long time, and you don't need to change if you don't have to.
I mean,
I'm
we'll be
fine with
glad
that.
to confer with schools tomorrow and get you an answer. Be glad to do that, yes, sir.
Note that we use Blackburn Children's and Stegall for ours, and they do a really good job, and we don't really worry a whole lot with them doing it, so.
No, and the school information doesn't pull into the city information.
It's integrated to ours, right?
I'm fine with the proposal. I just wanted to hear some of the rationale.
Yes, sir.
Okay. A3, Commissioner.
Yes, I actually live in this neighborhood
Mhm.
that they're doing this, and I know there is some resistance to this from some of the people that live in my neighborhood, and I don't want to vote, I would probably abstain from voting for that myself because I live there, but maybe something that need to be discussed at some point in time, because I don't think I think there were 10 families that were at the meeting out of the 130 families that live in this area that they talked to them about. So I'm not sure it was discussed with everybody as much as they didn't have a very good
Are we on
attendance at the
any
meeting.
urgent timeline on voting on this?
Preston, is there a deadline on this application process?
I don't know that we need to not vote for it, but I just wanted I live there, and I'm voting for the agenda here in a little bit, including that, and I may abstain from that portion of voting for that.
So could you, Mr. Mitchell, could you go ahead and just review what this means, what it doesn't mean? I've heard some comments too, they're afraid that then their property's going to be, the historic zoning is going to put some shackles on their property, that kind of thing. So can you give us an overview of this so that we've got some clarity?
Sure, I'll be happy to. I would like to start with the last part of your comment, and that is a designation or a recognition for National Register or to be placed on the National Register is not historic zoning. Those are two very different things. This is honorary in nature, and that is it, plain and simple. This is an honorary designation of this neighborhood to be recognized at the national level as a historic place. That recognizes the design of the neighborhood, the homes within the neighborhood, the properties within the neighborhood, the current condition of those homes, and it is, again, just a recognition of the historic nature and the importance of this area. Now, people have asked, is this a stepping stone? The answer is yes and no. Oftentimes, National Register designations do lead to historic zoning, but it's not a foregone conclusion. It is ultimately the decision of you all, of the City Commission, to decide from a policy level whether or not you, in the future, would ever want to apply historic zoning to this neighborhood. So, for example, the downtown or the tree streets, those areas, and I'm not aware of when they had their National Register designation applied, but when that National Register designation was granted, then subsequent to that, folks from those areas, from the downtown and from the neighborhood, came forward and said, we'd really like to have additional protections in place. And so there was a petition to go through that whole process. That is a whole nother separate public process, and again requires approval by the City Commission. I will say that oftentimes neighborhoods that are in distress, oftentimes areas that require additional protections to help mitigate further pressure or further damage to those historic resources. That's where historic zoning can come in and actually help protect those areas. This neighborhood is not experiencing that kind of pressure or that kind of downward pressure. These folks in this area are proud of these properties and caring for them. And so I think that likelihood of that coming forward is pretty low. Does that help?
I think that's the fear, that the people living there, that they won't be able to add on to their house or change the windows or do some of those things in the future because this passes and then it would just go right down the road to being a historic zone. And then there's limitations on what you can do to that property at that point. So that's the fear of the people living there.
Sure. Well, again, that would, the only way that it could, quote, slide down the road is if that was a petition, a formal zoning petition to apply the historic district to that area. And again, that would have to be vetted through the Planning Commission and then ultimately through the City Commission. And there would be numerous public hearings, which we know would be well attended. So there would be a very public process. The other is that there are no historic district guidelines for that area. So someone would have to draft historic district guidelines because you cannot apply universal guidelines to these areas. For example, you know how our zoning code applies to the entire city. Well, there are specific guidelines for the downtown and there are specific guidelines for the tree streets. So there would have to be guidelines written. That would be a very lengthy process and very involved. At this stage, this is simply an honorary designation or recognition.
That's kind of what I wanted brought out tonight. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So where did the process start? Who started this? Was it a request of the neighborhood or?
The process began prior to my arrival and even prior to Mr. Manley's arrival, who's our current preservation planner. My understanding through research as we've dug into this thing is that the planner on staff prior to Mr. Manley, Mr. Young, Matt Young, at that time had conversations with the Historic Commission that was in place at the time, and there was conversation about that there were folks interested in applying for this designation. So my understanding is that previous staff, in concert with the Historic Commission, initiated this process.
Just for my benefit, if let's say you didn't have an end game of applying the historic zone and you were just getting this on the National Registry, would that be worthwhile if it weren't part of a multi-step process to create a historic zone? Would you still do it if that was going to be the end of it?
Yeah. Oh, would you still seek National Registry designation?
Would you still do this if this was the end of the road?
Yes, that happens often, and part of the reason is there are some folks who have claimed that historic district status actually impedes or reduces property value when in fact our consultant, who's a professional in his field, actually provided data that historic district properties actually increase in value. And so there is a value increase in your property, and the other is that there are tax benefits based on certain improvements that you might make to your property, as long as those improvements are consistent with the Interior or the Department of Interior guidelines at the federal level. So there are both value
Just to be on the
improvements
National Register.
just to be in the National Register and potential tax credit opportunities.
So this did go through the Planning Commission?
It went to the Historic Zoning Commission.
Okay, didn't
Right.
go to the Planning Commission?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
It wouldn't, and that would be out of place because the Planning Commission is strictly on the planning and land use side. So actually, I'm glad you asked that. If there was a way to address the importance or to kind of reiterate how this is not a stepping stone, is that it was not vetted by the Planning Commission, because there is no application, no desire at this time to put forth any kind of zoning overlay.
And when it went before the Historic Zoning Commission, was there public input at that point?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and how many attended that?
Well, there were actually various opportunities. There were two, I believe. Yes, there were two neighborhood meetings, public events. One of which was at Watauga Avenue Presbyterian Church, and that was very well attended. In fact, the sanctuary was almost full. And then the second was a follow-up event to provide additional information, answer some questions, and that was held here at City Hall. I was not there. Mr. Manley was there, but there was a good handful of folks. In addition, there were public comment opportunities at the Historic Commission meetings themselves.
And that's what we're not privy to. We
Right.
don't know how the people who are affected by this, what kind of issues they may have had or support that they may have had. Was there any kind of report written up or anything that, we could be educated? And I haven't spoken with anyone myself.
I've heard
except
from a few
maybe-
people,
yeah,
but
just a
it's usually
couple.
been more reservation about
Right.
what does this ultimately mean.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted you to speak tonight, so.
Sure.
That's.
Happy to. And Mr. Peterson had asked me to be prepared, and Mr. Manley, he unfortunately was not able to be here. He would have loved to have spoken on behalf of his commission, the Historic Commission. He's out of town, but
I mean, generally speaking, was the neighborhood for this or were they against it?
yes, I would say generally speaking, the neighborhood was in favor of this, but I cannot say that there were concerned citizens within the neighborhood, both within the neighborhood and outside the neighborhood. Those folks who expressed concerns similar to what you've asked tonight, and that is, does this essentially automatically mean that we're going to have some historic zoning applied over our neighborhood? And the answer we have continued to give and try to assuage those concerns is that it is not a foregone conclusion.
But there's a chance.
But it's ultimately up to the five of you.
Commissioners, let's have you weigh in. I don't see a compelling reason why we have to vote on it tonight, and I still have a lot of unanswered questions, or have even talked with people that I probably need to, have some conversations, or at least have staff give us a better readout of what the concerns were. If some of the concerns were, it's going to affect my property values, and you just said just a minute ago, I think we've heard from the contrary that it may increase their property values. What's the documentation behind that? How do we know that, or are we just kind of thinking that it will?
Right. No, I certainly wouldn't have been a guess or an assumption. Mr. Manley, the one who has been managing this project, he is the one who submitted your all's packet, and so you should have in your packet the actual National Register write-up from our consultant, and so that information should be, and based on my reading, quite comprehensive. Now, what that national write-up or National District write-up does not include is it does not include much of the commentary that occurred during this process. He provided specifically during the meeting that occurred at Watauga Avenue Presbyterian Church, he provided a slideshow where he responded to many of these questions, and it was during that slideshow where he offered up packets and information for folks to be able to take home, where at that time he offered up information to help address many of these concerns. again, he's a professional in his field. He was chosen among multiple bids, so this is a very similar and common conversation that he has in other communities, and so he was prepared for that.
Just that we perhaps defer this to our second meeting in September, not included in the next meeting consent agenda, but as its own standalone item.
Sure.
And if neighbors wish to come and address it, perhaps we be open to the public hearing on it. Because I've heard from people, and at the same time, I think there are answers to some of the questions they have. I'm not sure we're going to get at those answers with it being item 3 in a consent agenda.
Sure.
What I would add to that is then that we have a workshop environment on the Monday night before for us. I mean, this is a very thick packet of information.
Right, yes, ma'am.
And that if we could address it at that level, I would feel much more comfortable, so that I truly understand.
Do we need a motion to defer this
We've
until
pulled
2?
it. We've pulled it right now, so you want to?
You need a motion to defer,
I
or
would
you're
move
going
to
to have to.
defer it to the second meeting of September, and that it be listed on that agenda as it's outside of the consent agenda.
Sure.
For a second?
I would second that.
Okay. Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler? Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes. And then we will attach, Mr. Peterson, a workshop presentation of this for the commissioners.
Sure. Madam Mayor, if I could, even though the consultant has completed his task, he's been paid all of his final bills, I will reach out to him and see if he would have the ability to, he resides in Nashville, see if he might have the ability to come over. I can't promise that right now, but I want to at least extend that we'll reach and see if he can come over and help provide. Again, he's an expert in his field. He provided a lot of this backup and can address some of these questions.
Even by phone, it might be
We
helpful.
could always link him in.
Sure. I'll let you know.
Okay, be good. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks so
Ms. Lynn.
much. Okay, we've taken that off the consent agenda.
Move for approval.
All right, on the regular consent agenda, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Which is everything but
Everything else.
A3.
Correct.
A second.
Okay, Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Next order of business is consideration of ordinance number 4703-19. An ordinance authorizing the conveyance to RNG Ventures certain parcel of real property and easement owned by the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, and located in Washington County, Tennessee, upon the terms and conditions contained herein, and repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, is ready for your consideration on third reading. I would remind you that this is just an easement. We still have the right to go in and maintain all of our utilities as well as any other utilities, including stormwater that may need to happen there. It's ready for your approval, and I would add for your thoughts, this is a heavily used section or a heavily used sidewalk trail. And in this document, it does not mention the time in which the trail must be restored once they tear it out. I would suggest to you, you may want to put a time limit in there that the existing trail can be closed no longer than 2 weeks. So, because we don't want to get into a situation to where it's closed for a lengthy period of time and it becomes very disruptive to the users, everyday users of the trail.
That should be added, for sure.
And you
Can
can
that
make
be-
that as a condition of your third
And
and
is
final
2
approval.
weeks enough time?
Our guys could go in there and build that in 2 days.
Well, but you
So
rip
I-
it out and then it rains. And then it
I think
rains
2
some
weeks
more.
is adequate, yes, sir. And I'm just talking about reconstructing the trail. I mean, it's gonna take them longer than that to do their landscaping and retaining wall and all the stuff they're gonna have to do.
Trail back
That
usable.
really won't impact us, but we need the trail done fairly quickly.
I would make that motion to approve this, subject to the trail being offline no more than 2 weeks.
I second that.
Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Okay, at this time, I would like to ask Mr. Witherspoon to come in and give us an update on the Reedy Creek wastewater line extension. Is he out there? Okay. Tom will be right in just a minute, please.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. What we've called Upper Reedy Creek sewer improvements or sewer line. Just as the general area, if you might visualize, you have Boone Lake and I-26 running in parallel, and then you have all of the streams that drain to Boone Lake that are running perpendicular to both of those. We have sewer in Carroll Creek to a large degree. We have a large sewer line in Boones Creek. As far as Reedy Creek, it is the next drainage basin over to the north as you head towards Kingsport. Years ago, when Garland Farms was developed, there was a sewer lift station that was put in order to accommodate that growth and the annexation into that area. And that has had was originally designed for the capacity for Garland Farms, and it's, as you might imagine, it's up in the upper portion of the Reedy Creek Basin. I think Mr. Peterson can probably reinforce this, that over the last 5 years, based on available acreage and other development pressures, we have been approached to extend sewer out of that station to adjacent tracts and to larger tracts of lands out there. We have declined that because of the capacity of the station and because of the capacity of the lines that are leaving the station, coming back to the Boones Creek area. The development of the school out there, in all likelihood, is going to increase development pressure for those tracts of land. The existing station will not handle any flow beyond Garland Farms and the immediate tract of land around that. I
Is the
believe
new school on our system?
the new school is on our system. It is on the Boones Creek drainage way and ties into the Boones Creek interceptor. So it's the hill over, or the valley over, rather. With the preparation of, the capital plan for the next 4 years, that was a project that was considered and included in that capital plan along with many other projects. And it's a large enough project that that's the type of plan and funding that needs to go to cover that. In other words, if in 2 or 3 years we decide that all of a sudden we want to go provide service out there, you've missed the window to include that to some degree. So that was included in the capital plan, again, for those very reasons. There probably will be, I'm not a planner, but I suspect there'll be some development based on some of the tracks we declined to provide service to that are further north. They developed. We're providing them water service, but they developed in their own septic systems. So at some point in time, if those property owners, not the developers at this point, ever desire to get sewer, we're back in installing sewers at a greater cost, tearing up the streets, those kind of things. And so if you're ever going to provide sewer to this upper drainage basin, that's the justification for the project, is to allow the development community to bear most of the cost of putting those lines in as the property develops and staying away from septic systems. Okay. So in March, you authorized Mattern and Craig, local engineering firm, to start work on that. on the design on that. They have delivered what we have considered to be 30% plans, and in delivery of a sewer project or on any heavy capital project, whether it's a plant project or water line project or whatever, it is common practice among the engineering profession to provide the owner with plans and draft contract documents at certain intervals. And the reason for doing that is they don't want to be authorized to do work and not come back to 90%, and all of a sudden the owner comes in and comments that, yeah, we want to change this, we want to change this. They need those comments about the midway point in the process. So we've got about 30% plans and a draft engineering report. What's in the draft engineering report is basically two options that require action, or a third option, which is do nothing. And so you understand fully what the do nothing option would be. Both options have a common approach in that from Garland Farms, we would phase that lift station out and go down to, don't quote me on the mileage, but 10 or 11, 12,000 feet below the Garland Farms lift station into an area where you've got a group of drainage ways coming together and locate another lift station. And it would phase out Garland Farms. And y'all have seen projects in the past that we have strictly to phase out lift stations because they've reached their capacity, they're not in good condition, they've reached their useful life. From that point, you would pump from that station back along or back towards the Boones Creek Interceptor. And the option one, option two, or option A, option B, or the difference in the two options is whether you pump all the way back to the interceptor or whether you lay a component of gravity from the interceptor up the natural grade from the Boones Creek Interceptor. And so in a preferred, if money were no object and the ideal situation is you're putting in a sewer project which is a public investment to catch as many properties as possible by gravity. So those are the two options that the consultant is evaluating. Sewer, as y'all are aware, is a very grade sensitive issue. If we're talking about a water line, run it on this side of the road, run it on this side of the road, run it on another road. Up, down, not an issue. Sewer and gravity sewer is obviously grade sensitive. And so what they're trying to do is come back to the city, and I talked to the engineer who was here tonight on another issue, and we're going to try to have 60% plans back by about around the middle of the month, plus or minus a day or two. Yes, sir. And the communication on that from the staff has been, we got to at least get to the 60% point because we'll have some certainty if you want to know where, for any property owner, and there may be about 12 or more property owners that we may be seeking easements from on the full gravity option. Property owners certainly have the right to know what's going on, but we have the right to try to get them good information and the best information we had. And this project mirrors all the other sewer projects that we have delivered in that we try to get to a certain point to where, whether it's our engineers or the engineers that the city is contracted with, that there is a degree of certainty about where the line might go from a horizontal perspective and how deep the line might be. Because if I was a property owner, that would be a couple of questions I'd want to know.
So you'll be getting the information at 60% is what you're talking about for both the gravity system and the pump system?
Yep,
and
primarily.
at some point in time?
Primarily for the gravity system,
Okay.
and then the pump system is easy to visualize. Again, it's
Okay.
easy to route. And so, and what we've repeatedly said is that's the point we would prefer to start engaging property owners and saying, hey, this is a potential? What are your concerns? Is there something unique to your property that we need to be aware of in going through this process? Now, we just, as y'all are aware, have just completed design and right-of-way acquisition on the Brush Creek Interceptor. And there's about 55 easements on that. And certainly, there were some folks that we had conversations with after we were able to go to the field with a set of drawings that reflected what potentially could be the route and could be the depth. And there was good exchange of back and forth on those, with those property owners during that period. And with that project, we were fortunate based on all the involvement the staff had and our agents had on that. There is not a condemnation on that project. So I think that's where we're at on the project, Mayor. And so I think Mr. Peterson asked for an update. We're about 2 weeks away from having what I would consider to be meaningful information. Again, the concern is on going out with a set of drawings that are no more than draft set of drawings is that someone may see a route and say, well, I thought it was going here, but at a later revision, it is shifted, it is moved, or whatever. And that's wouldn't be necessarily for just people maybe who might not be in favor of it. That would also be for people who are in favor of it and all of a sudden find out that it shifted to another part of their property, and they're not going to be very happy about it, or might not be. So that's where we're at in the delivery of the design.
Once you get that 60% work done, what are your next steps then?
I think we start engaging property owners, and if we're aware of a property owner that is generally opposed to the project, we'll go ahead and start the process potentially of, is there a method to avoid it? Because on every project we've had where we've had somebody that was concerned about it, we owe it to the public to take a look at that. It's not quite the time yet to have done that. And so that process will occur on this also. So,
What is your timeline, Mr. Witherspoon? Let's say you get all the information back, you go to the property owners, you get a thumbs up. When are we likely to see actual construction work?
well, you're going to advertise hopefully towards the end of the year, and you'll be into construction probably next spring would be my guess. That's about as late as you're going to need to go on this. So.
And how many linear feet of
I was afraid you was going to ask
line
that.
that we're going to, you want to say miles then?
It's a fairly significant project.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a $2 million project. So there's a considerable amount of pipe to be put in the ground. So I hope that provides you any other questions on that. It mirrors the same delivery that we utilize, that others have utilized. There's, there is, I don't know that everyone wants a sewer line. We get calls from folks quite often that want the sewer line for the benefits to the property, and that benefit is usually on the value to the property. We also understand that that's not a driver for a lot of folks, and so we get it. But we need to get through about another couple of weeks before we make any hard decisions.
And your approach is just one-on-one meetings with each property owner?
Yep.
You don't have any group meetings or anything like that?
No, because every property owner's situation is unique. And for every, especially on the gravity component, there may be some people that if we move away from a full gravity component, there could be some people that if they did want it for whatever reason, that may be adversely affected because it may no longer be a gravity component near their property. So you may have multiple inputs from the property owners that we may be getting easements from or deciding not to get easements from.
the advantage, this is a rhetorical question, of having a sewer system over a septic system?
Well, sewer system, the waste from the house is collected, transported, properly treated, and recycled back into the river at a point that the river can stand the assimilation of that recycling. On the septic, you have septic systems that appear to work fine, and then you have septic systems that don't work so fine. And so the concern is on the septic systems are pollution of groundwater, pollution of surface water. Going back a few years, and Mr. Peterson can remember this, we went into, there was some annexations that the city did, and we went into some fairly large residential areas that one of the prime drivers for the annexation, in addition to schools, police, and fire, was their septic systems didn't work. And we were the city was the only solution to those problems. Martindale, Sunny Slopes, areas on the west side of town.
Cherokee Gardens.
Cherokee Gardens. I mean, those are, only the gray-haired folks remember those.
Yeah, as Tom pointed out previously, those annexations were requested by the neighborhoods because they had open sewage on top of the ground. And we went in and spent $4 or $5 million on one of those neighborhoods.
That was the commitment that the folks got as a result of being inside the city.
Yeah, and that's a retrofit. Had sewer been put in before the subdivision developed, it would have probably been half or less of that cost. To retrofit is very expensive. The other thing that sewer brings to a property, if you have, you get more density per acre. So if you've got, a septic system requires a minimum lot size, which is much larger than if you're on sanitary sewer. So if you've got a 5-10 acre tract and you're wanting to put 3 or 4 houses on it, with sanitary sewer, that's no problem. With septic tanks, you're probably going to run into some challenges with the health department you could run into challenges with the health department to try to get multiple structures on one lot, depending on the lot size. So it's, as Tom pointed out, I mean, there's a lot of advantages to water quality. You don't have issues with water quality with sanitary sewer system. Septic tanks work? Yeah, they work great. But you've always got the chance that they're going to start leaching into the creek somewhere. And, then you've got issues down the road, and, you can control what you do, but you can't control what somebody upstream from you does. And so.
Who regulates septic systems?
It's
Health Department?
It's TDEC.
TDEC.
Yeah, they have under their groundwater division.
And is that getting more rigorous standards for that?
I think from a number of years ago, they have additional requirements about acreage and the ability to have duplicate systems in the event that the first one begins to fail. So as a general rule, the requirements have gone to the more strenuous from the less strenuous over a long period of time. So.
Commissioners, any other questions? Mr. Witherspoon? Just encourage you to keep the communication open when you get the results back, and hopefully you'll give us an update.
We'd be happy to.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Tom.
The other item I need to bring to your attention is we have, what's the proper terminology for this notice?
Report on debt obligation.
It's a report on debt obligation, which is required to be brought to your attention and given to you for your information. It's in your information section in your packet.
Mr. Peterson,
Yes,
can
ma'am.
we address that in a minute and do the public input
Sure.
Okay, 'cause
Yeah,
we have some
I'm just
people.
Here for 2 hours.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it,
That's
though.
pretty much
That's
it. I just
We
needed to
had
make
to
sure
mention
that you
it.
knew it was in your packet.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
And that's all the information that we
We
have
recognize that.
on the agenda. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
All right, I will open the public hearing. I haven't had any submissions for anyone who's wanted to speak, but I will allow if anyone wants to
But
speak.
it's so rare that a group stays all the way to the near end of the meeting.
Yeah.
We're happy to hear from you if you would like to speak.
Yeah, if anybody would like to speak, you can step forward and give your name and address.
You can come up
Come
here.
up to the,
That's not for our benefit, it's for the folks at home.
So they
the microphone, right. Yeah, state your name and address, please.
My name is Randy Miller, and I live at 201 Kiefhofer Road in Gray. And a large part of this plan affects my home and my property. My concern began when the city just showed up at our property and started driving stakes down through our field when my wife was home alone. And we had no idea what they were doing. We were told by the young men that were doing that they were told by the city to come out and drive the stakes for a survey, for surveyors, for a infrastructure improvement. And so I came to the city the next morning and found out that it was a sewer line that they were looking to run through the property. I have 5 acres of property, and it begins on Kiefhofer Road. And my understanding of everything that we've researched and that we've seen from the city, which is like pulling teeth to get, is that it would pretty much run from one end of our property to the other about 40, 50 feet off of our front porch through a cow field that we have. We were very concerned about the effect that this was going to have on the natural springs that run through that field. We were very concerned about the disruption of the life that we have built on this piece of property that is miles away from these developments that you're trying to take care of. We know that there is sewer line by the new school and in that direction, and he addressed that, and supposedly it's faltering, I guess. And our questions were that, why through the middle of our property are you proposing a sewer line that's going to feed several developments in the Boones Creek area back behind us? It made more sense to me if that line exists, even though it's inadequate right now, why you wouldn't continue to restore it and continue it on to those developments, which is much closer to the old line. The only answer that I can come up with is that it's cheaper. They're talking about a gravity flow system that would come through our property. And I've had the environmentalist out from the state. I've had a geologist out. We know how that property lies and why and where those springs are. And we were told by the geologist, by the environmentalist, that a gravity line is going to leak. Eventually, they're put together with rubber gaskets, et cetera, that the sewage stays in those lines until it's forced out by everyone upstream. That a pumped system is more expensive to do than a gravity system. And so my first thought is, well, that makes sense. The city's going to try to save as much money as they can, but then we're going to bear the burden of the savings that they realize. We purchased that property in '96 to raise our family. And it's been a blessing. We love where we're at. We are evidently in the 10-year plan, from what I understand, under the annexation plans of the city. I understand the growth of Boones Creek, which I'm not happy about, but that's progress. But why we have to be our entire piece of property split in half with a sewer line that we can no longer build on if we want to put a second home for one of our children. And the other question that I have is, if you have an easement through the middle of our property, does that give you the right then to run water line, power, or even a road? Is that yours to do with as you please? Through the years, if you decide, well, we need access to these developments up on the hill, and this is a good access. This is a way to relieve traffic on Boones Creek Highway, so we can cut through this easement, and now we have a road. What comes next is what I'm wondering. This is our home, and there are better alternatives than to run through the middle of this piece of property. It may not be as cheap, but we strongly feel as though it's just wrong.
Mr. Baylor, first, thank you for coming, and thank you for your words. I think we all heard them. Hopefully you heard tonight from Mr. Witherspoon's presentation. They will be talking, as soon as they get really the information they need, which they don't have right now, they'll be coming and talking with you personally, one-on-one, and all these kind of questions and answers and all can be obtained at that point. We're going to keep the communication lines open, and we'll be as eager as you to hear about what the recommendations are. And then once we get that information back, we'll have that discussion, we'll get recommendations from staff, and we'll deal with that. But we heard what you had to say, and I certainly understand what your concern is as a family and a property owner there, so.
I also want to apologize for them coming on your property without talking to you before that. That's not supposed to happen, so we will try and make sure that never happens again.
Well, I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to speak. I do want to ask if, and I don't know if this has happened in the past, but I would like to be informed at some point, is this just a sewer line? Is this the beginning of other use of that easement to accommodate these developments? Because if it is, I want to know that right up front.
Many of those questions, I think, too, will become a little clearer when you're actually presented with a real
Well, and I
document.
understand that, but it has been like pulling teeth to get anybody to be honest with us about it. We're always put off, oh, that's so far in the future, it's so premature that we can't tell you anything. When it affects our lives, drastically, we should be informed every step of the way, but we're always told, well, within 2 weeks, and that has gone on since May. Within 2 weeks, we'll have some information. And then when we requested information, basically what we got, and I have to tell you that the engineering firm has been more forthcoming than the city has been. They have been kinder and shown us more than we could get out of the city. And it's just the way that it has been handled from the beginning is very, very unprofessional. I appreciate what you folks do, and I know you don't have control over all of these things, but someone needs to understand when these things happen to someone's property, when there's consideration that this may happen, then there needs to be an open line of communication from the very beginning so that we can better understand what is the plan. We've spent many, many sleepless nights thinking, is there going to be a road with streetlights out here next? Are there going to be towers or power, what are we looking at? And what does it do to the value of my home, which is our lives? So I just hope that they'll look and see, even if you have to spend a little more money, that there's a better route than what they're considering. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And we generally give 3 minutes on public input, so if,
I think I can do it quicker than that, Mayor.
all right, if you state your name and address, please.
My name's Major General Retired Gary Harrell. I live at 137 Richland Heights. And obviously, that's very close to where the property where we're talking about. I also serve on the City Planning Commission. I heard everything here tonight, and I appreciate you all taking the time to let us hear this and Mr. Witherspoon's presentation. So I have tried very hard from the City Planning Commission side to find out what the heck's going on. Zero. Really hard. Can't get anybody to give an answer. And I'm kind of reinforcing what Randy just said. I think that's a very, very poor way to do business. I understand what Mr. Witherspoon said about making the plan, making sure he's got it. For gosh sakes, you ought to be able to talk to the people that are around there that are asking you questions. And I appreciate the fact that, Madam Mayor, that you're taking this on. And I just think it's really a poor way to do business. I understood what Mr. Witherspoon said. Certainly that's applicable, but the people that live around there kind of need to know what's going on. And it's also been my experience that when you can't find out anything and nobody can tell you something, you probably want to dig a little bit deeper. And please don't take that the wrong way. I'm not insinuating somebody's doing something wrong from the standpoint of illegal or anything like that. I'm just saying, gee, we're all friends and neighbors here, or we ought to be. I know most of you guys fairly well. Please, Madam Mayor, don't take that the way I said it. But anyway.
I'm good.
It takes
Anyway,
more than that.
I think, Joe.
I know, I've gotten closer to it than that.
Yeah. Anyway, I just really think that there's a better way to do business. And I appreciate the fact that y'all are listening to it tonight. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Anyone else? All right.
If I could just say,
Sure.
this body convenes on the first and third Thursday of every month. You heard Mr. Witherspoon earlier say by the middle of the month. I take that to be the 15th, rounded off to the 16th. We're here again on the 19th. So, and they're not always 2-hour meetings till we get to this point in the agenda. Just tonight was unusual. So,
Very.
you know, I think I can speak for the rest of us here. We take very seriously the disruption this represents. And when I first learned of people traipsing through your property, putting stakes, my initial reaction was very visceral, that if that were in my yard, I'm not sure how much talking would have been taking place.
Especially through General Harold's yard.
But having said that, once we, you know, that was a breakdown in communication, and I'm not making excuses for it, but some effort to apologize has occurred, but we hear you. We take very seriously the concerns you're raising. It will be a lot easier to have a conversation about this once we know specifically what we're talking about. And I recognize that's not very satisfying right now, but so much of what we deal with is not fully baked. So.
Can I say one?
Walnut? We haven't closed it yet.
My name's Rhonda Miller.
3 minutes.
Randy. Okay, I'll try my best. I appreciate and reiterate what has been said about you all taking this on. There are a couple things that I want just to be wide open. Since May 14th, we've been told 2 more weeks, 2 more weeks. I make those calls. I have them on the calendar. and it's always 2 more weeks. And so I appreciate what you're saying. My faith is not right there. My faith is also, the city hired Mattern and Craig to do the job, okay? It's the city's responsibility to notify, and repeatedly, the city has blamed Mattern and Craig. And I want that to be recognized, because it wasn't their responsibility. And the trespassing and zero transparency is just unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller.
Well, 2 weeks is on my calendar now. So,
He keeps it. All right, seeing no one else, I will close the public hearing. Thank y'all so much
Thank you.
for being here. All right, Mr. Peterson.
That's all we have.
Okay, commissioners, anything going on in your worlds you want to bring to our attention?
Well, we have the first ETSU home game on Saturday at the stadium, and the Saturday after that is the 50th anniversary of the undefeated ETSU team, for the 1969 team that won their bowl game. And anyway, they are being recognized at that game. And I'm sorry we didn't have a proclamation for them tonight, because we won't meet again until after that game. But maybe we can still get one together for the next one, and give it to. There are only, I think, 2 coaches left, and Jerry Robertson are about the only ones left that were the coaching staff. But they have, I think, like 40-something players still that are
There's quite a
around.
few.
There are a bunch of them. So
do we
anyway,
have to do that in a meeting, or can a proclamation be done outside?
I think we could probably do a proclamation at that game in a week and a half. So
We'll all be there, I
Yeah.
think.
Well, no, we're all there.
this Saturday.
This Saturday,
Yeah.
that's right.
But we could still be there.
I'm
on
sure they could find a
Saturday.
door for the mayor to come in.
Sure.
Proclamate.
Well, I was at ETSU in 1969 when all that went on. It was
Were
a
you
very
there?
good year.
I was actually working in the press box for ABC television at the Liberty Bowl in Memphis, making phone calls to the Liberty Bowl, handing the information to Chris Schenkel and Bud Wilkinson.
And we
And they
played
got
football.
upset with me, said, why does somebody keep giving me this ETSU score?
Because it was in.
Because it was important.
And we played football outside
Uh-huh.
in 1969.
Yeah. So that's coming up.
And
both
at
of
least
those.
2 city commissioners weren't born in 1969.
Please.
Would be me. Wasn't.
Commissioner Calhoun, anything
Well,
going on in
actually,
your
just
world?
real quickly, we have 2 groups that have taken on the project of doing some research on what municipal governments do relative to immunizations and those kind of things, that they'll be coming back to us probably by the end of the semester, just to give them information about here's what best practices they've found.
Vice Mayor?
JCDA still working toward closing on the Severe Center, and I believe that is on track to happen sometime here in the next few days.
Good. Well, it's a busy weekend. Of course, Saturday night is ETSU first football game. I think several of us will be there. It will also be the 2nd annual Tri-Pride Parade over in Kingsport during the day. And on Sunday, it's the 50th anniversary of the Johnson City Symphony. So I'll be doing a proclamation for them. They will be playing at Cardinal Park.
And a free public concert.
A
that
free
anyone
public
can
concert.
attend.
Yeah, exactly. So that will be a nice thing. We've got a lot going on. There's going to be a lot in town this weekend. Just encourage all of our citizens to get out and spend some money.
Buy local.
Meeting adjourned.